Hello everyone, and welcome to Katharine's Creatures. This is a series where I get to talk a little bit about and touch base upon various mythological beasts, beings, and the like pulled from lore worldwide. And I always like to preface by saying I am not a linguist, so if I mispronounce anything along the way, I do apologize in advance. And today I kind of wanted to talk about the Upior. And the Upior actually has a whole slew of variations in spelling and pronunciations because it is believed across Turkish, Bulgarian, Czech, Slovakian, Polish, Russian, Ukrainian folklore. It's a lot. Essentially, Upior is some kind of a demonic being, again, that comes from this collection of folklore and is a prototype for what we consider the modern vampire. And the actual word in Old Slavic for Upior was Upior, which again has a very similar sound and a little bit spelling to vampire, as again comes and how it's been evolved to what we see it today. Now, in Slavic culture, there is and I have to kind of preface because this is something that does pertain to the Upior mythos, and it's the fact that in Slavic culture, there is a stark distinction between the soul and the body, and the soul is believed to be unable to die and perish. So it exists after a person passes away. Now, it is also thought that the soul will actually hang about for 40 days after the person dies, living around its old neighborhood, kind of again, village area, before it finally moves on to its eternal rest. And during that time frame, people would often open windows and doors, especially the old home, to allow the spirit to be able to kind of pass through at its own will and come and go as it pleases. During this time, the spirit is able to re-enter the corpse. And this is where things can potentially go south. Now, because of that, the burial rites were taken very, very seriously. And it's part to ensure that the soul is in its purest form, but also that it's completely separated from the decaying corpse that is left behind. Now, there's a whole variation of ways where a soul could be deemed unclean. And this could be if the deceased was born in infancy or died in infancy, a woman dies in childbirth, there is an untimely or violent death that occurs, and if the person was deemed almost an evil entity, such as a sorcerer or witch-like person. And so a lot of these were viewed that, again, as these unclean souls and had to be taken very, very careful preparations when they passed away to just ensure that the Upior doesn't come about. And because if the soul of an unclean soul is left behind, they could take their vengeance upon humanity. Nobody really wants that. So the Upior spirit, again, spirit of an unclean person, takes control of a decaying corpse to do violent acts or to harass, even just mildly harass people, and nobody wanted that. So again, these burial rites were taken very, very seriously, and they try to ensure that no one would desecrate these corpses and just ensure that, again, the spirits can move on. Now, people, when they were alive, there were certain signs that were believed to be indicators that this person might have a chance of becoming a Upior after death. And these are physical differences that include a whole slew of things, anything from limps to red hair and unibrows, to having been born with double sets of teeth, or maybe birthmarks like a gray mark on the back. These were traits, again, that were signaling that the person, once they die, might actually turn into or have a better chance of turning into this violent demonic entity. So other things that people watched were unusual behavior or suspicious behavior, which included walking by moonlight. Fun fact. So, interesting stuff. And if you know anything about Slavic culture, and I think I've featured this, I'm pretty sure I featured this one in one of my prior videos, but there is the Striga, and the Striga and the Upior have a similar belief in that both of them had two souls and two hearts put together in one body. So there is kind of similarities to some of the other Slavic entities because of that. Now, moving on, there's a lot to talk about, so I'm going through all my span of notes. And so again, people tried to keep an eye out for any signs or indicators that someone might have a better chance of turning into this demonic entity. And so they were very cautious at that. Other signs that a striga might have come about is that the neighbors either were feeling unusual fatigue, maybe they were really pale or sweaty, they had recurring nightmares. All these could be signs that there is a striga up and about. And so people were also warned against burning photos or portraits of a dead person, because that might also somehow correlate to a Upior arising, and nobody wanted that. There were other unusual things that could trigger a Upior, is if someone was buried but with an old shirt. So interesting things. There's a whole slew of them. Lots of information about this. If you are interested, you can check this out. Go and research yourself in the Upior culture, but it goes on and on. And some fun things is that I thought this was neat, that the people believed that you might be able to catch the glimpse of the Upior in mirrors during the evening time, and that is why they stopped looking at mirrors once it got dark. And they didn't look at the mirror until the next morning, and then they, can go and primp as much as they wanted in the morning. But at night, they try to refuse to look into a mirror because for fear of catching a glimpse of the Upior that's out and about. Now, another thing is to the appearance of Upior, again, decaying corpse. It's probably something that's fairly recognizable in and among itself, but they would often be seen either holding their decapitated head, and we'll get to that a little bit more in a moment, or if their head was still attached, they would have these glowing wolf-like eyes. So these are some physical signs that you're dealing with a Upior. And they had the ability to kill people with their shrieks and their breath. So you didn't want to get close to them, you didn't want to hear them, you didn't want to see them, you just did not want to deal with them. And of course, again, relating to the fact that they are one of these precursing entities that inspire vampires, they drink the human blood, and they have this superhuman strength. So very dangerous and nightmarish creatures. Now, they also had the capability at night to torment people by either causing them to sleepwalk, or all the way to suffocating them. Horrible things. They also had the ability to cause plagues for both people and cattle. Terrifying creatures yet again. And one of their many, sorry, I'm going back for a second, but one of the many triggers, again, many triggers on creating Upior is if you brought a body out of a house, if they died in the house, out a front door or regular door, you actually had to carry out the corpse through a special hole and not the main doors, because that could also be one of these precursing triggers to cause a Upior to arise. And we didn't want that. Now, if anybody was suspected to have the capability of turning into a Upior post-death, their corpse would have either garlic or a bit of a brick or iron stuffed in their mouth. It was just one thing to help prevent them from arising. Another thing that they did, they would put branches of wild rose, hawthorn, blackthorn in the coffins that would help prevent them from rising as a Upior. If other precautionary things is that they would sprinkle in poppy seeds, because a lot of the lore of the area for any kind of supernatural entities, if you sprinkle seeds or a lot of these kind of small particulates, some people do sand, but in this case was poppy seeds. The idea is that when the Upior woke up, they were forced to pick up and count every seed. So essentially you're giving them busy work until the sun rose and prevented them from leaving their coffin. Another thing that you would do would toss in tangled fishing nets. Again, with the same idea that they would be forced to untangle and not unknot them. And by the time they did that, the sun would be up and they would have to remain in their coffin and not cause problems. So all different things. Other things, again, precautionary, if some corpse was potentially deemed as being a Upior, they would cut off the head, thus the decapitated head earlier, cut off the head and stick it between the legs. Other people would nail the corpse to the coffin itself, burn the body, or bury it face down in reverse. All these would help prevent the Upior from leaving its coffin and kind of keep it, from causing problems. Now, if a Upior rises and starts causing, wandering around the village and harming people, one of the things you could do is be careful not to get too close to them, but prevent them from re-entering their coffin when sunrise occurs, because if the sun touched them, they would either disappear or turn into a pile of tar, and you have defeated the Upior. Again, you can kind of see a lot of echoes of what we deem vampire mythos today from this particular original creature. Anywho, if you have any questions for this or anything else, please post them in the comments below or reach out to me on any of my social media. This was a long one today. And until next time, everyone, skål.